Welcome back. It is the Final Possession Football Podcast, the FPFP. That's right, we're back. Football season is right around the corner. Technically, it has kicked off since we are 1 week into the NFL preseason, and that means the Final Possession Football Podcast is back. I'm Chris Shanafelt, my co-host, of course, Javon Alford. Javon, how's it going? And how's it feel to bring this pod back, man? It's been a while since we've last done the FPFP, but here we are back at it, and we're gonna make this thing happen this season.
Hey, it's definitely great to be back on, Chris, and you're right. It's definitely great to have the FPFP back, and it's football season, so we might as well get it started. It's preseason for them, and it's also preseason for us. So if anybody probably wondering, like, why are they talking about these topics? Like, there's, like, nothing else about preseason. We get it. It's preseason. But we got to make this show, like, somewhat semi-enjoyable until we get to, like, September 6th. Then all the madness can begin. But for right now, just enjoy the laid-back football topic.
Absolutely. And, man, it's this is really the most exciting time of the year for me, at least, football season. I love basketball. I'm obviously in Chicago. The Cubs have been playing really well lately. I'm not the biggest baseball fan, though. Football and basketball are kind of my go-tos, but football is by far number one on my list. And even though we're just in preseason, that off season seems so long, and so much time goes by, and the Super Bowl's played in early February, and here we are now. Training camp's kind of getting started late July, early August. Like I said, favorite time of the year, best time of the year for me, football season. And, just to remind everybody, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Chris Shanafelt. He's at Javon10. This is the Final Possession Football Podcast. And, it's just great to have football season back, man. And with that said, what a day to bring the podcast back, Javon, because it's a pretty big day around the NFL, or at least here in Chicago, I should say. For the listeners that aren't familiar, I'm in Chicago. Javon, you're in Philadelphia, the Super Bowl champs out there. And while we won't be just focusing on the Chicago Bears and the Philadelphia Eagles, today the Bears reached terms to a contract with their first-round pick, Roquan Smith, the number 8 overall pick, linebacker out of Georgia. Believe it was at 27 days is how long this holdout lasted for him. He missed all of training camp, at least down in Bourbonnais, where the Bears held their training camp at Olivet Nazarene University. They will be heading to Denver tomorrow to have a joint practice session with the Denver Broncos before their game against the Broncos Saturday. But it seems like finally it's come to an end. The Roquan Smith holdout is over. Both sides were able to come to agree to terms on a contract, and Roquan Smith is finally a Chicago Bear. When the news broke earlier this afternoon, Javon, I mean, you could just feel this excitement from the Chicago Bears fan base. This is a guy that they drafted within the top the top 10 in the 2018 NFL draft. This is a guy that won the Dick Butkus Award. We all know about the linebacker tradition with the Chicago Bears, and of course, just having Brian Urlacher inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Chicago Bears fans are really excited and really happy that this didn't drag on any further into the preseason or into the regular season. They're very happy that this holdout is officially over. Roquan Smith is officially a Chicago Bear.
Hey, I think it's a great move to get Roquan and the Smith for the Bears, especially with, what they're trying to do on defense and what Matt Nagy is just trying to build with that team overall. It seems like, and we've had this conversation in private before, Chris, it seems like this year, unlike other years, has been like a lot of like delayed like rookie signings, like rookies like really like trying to get down to the nitty gritty of like their contracts to like the last sentence in the contract, the period, the dollar sign amounts. But I mean, I think to get him back is perfect. at this time, I mean, yeah, would it have been nice to have him in training camp? Certainly. But at the same time, when you look at it for the Bears in this perspective, the other guys that were taking his snaps for these, 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, they now have valuable experience that they can use now to either be a starter in Chicago or be a nice, valuable backup behind Roquan Smith. Now for Roquan, he's going to have to come in and kind of play the game of catch up now. There won't be nothing handed to him. There won't be none's going to be handed to him. He's going to have to go out there and work for it, and he's going to get his first taste of NFL, practices starting against another team. So that should be interesting to see how he reacts. But this guy's a playmaker, a future defensive piece in that defense to go with the likes of Leonard Floyd on that defensive line. And then obviously in the secondary, you got Eddie Jackson back there as well. So I think the Bears are putting something really nice together with their defense, and it was great to have Roquan Smith, because that was the final piece, and everybody was wondering how long he was going to take it. So great to have him back in camp, and we'll see how fast he can catch up, because the end game is not preseason, and getting him play preseason. Yeah, it'd be great to see him play in preseason, but now the goal is for him and for the Bears is to get him ready for the first week of the NFL regular season.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Big first week of the regular season for the Chicago Bears as well. Sunday Night Football at rival Green Bay Packers. And you know what, Javon, you're absolutely right. Like you said, I mean, this holdout has lasted, I believe today was the 27th day. So, it's been quite a few weeks. And with that, that means there's somebody getting those reps that Roquan Smith would initially have if he were in camp, and that somebody was Nick Kwiatkowski,
right.
linebacker, and not only was he getting these first team reps, but he was making the most of them as well. He was looking really good in training camp. He was one of the bright spots, and there's been a lot of them for the Chicago Bears so far this summer, but he was one of the top bright spots on that Bears defense, at least early on in training camp and the first couple of preseason games. Nick Kwiatkowski really took this opportunity and ran with it, and now there's kind of a little bit of a question whether or not Roquan Smith, the deal is done. There's still 3 more preseason games to go. There's plenty of time to get ready for this first week or this first game of the regular season, but now there's questions whether or not he's going to be able to beat out Nick Kwiatkowski, who's been performing very well. Now, obviously, you spend a number 8 overall pick in the first round on a position. That means that that's a position in need for that team. I think Nick Kwiatkowski has really exceeded expectations, at least to this point. Obviously, we're still very early on into even preseason, but I think Vic Fangio, the Bears defense coordinator, has been very happy with what he's seen out of Nick Kwiatkowski. Now, if it were me, I'm not trying to say that Roquan's not starting at all this season. Honestly, if I had to make a bet, I would say that yes, he will be the Week 1 starter. Right there with Danny Trevathan at inside linebacker for the Bears. But I don't think it's going to be as easy as many people are expecting it to be. Nick Kwiatkowski has looked really solid up to this point, and Roquan Smith, even in the off-season programs, he was around the team, which made this holdout a little bit more surprising, at least for me. He was around the team for all the rookie programs, off-season programs as well with the veterans, and even then he didn't, he didn't work with the rookies right away.
Right.
And it wasn't until that last week of OTAs that he started getting some first-team reps. But, even from the get-go, things weren't just handed to the number 8 overall pick. So long story short, I do think Roquan will be the starter come Week 1. But, again, he's going to have to earn it, like you said, Javon. I mean, there's been somebody else taking his reps in training camp. And, Nick Kwiatkowski has certainly made the most of that.
Yeah, no doubt. He's got to. I agree. I mean, like you said, Nick definitely he took the snaps and he ran with it. Now it's up to him and up to the Bears, see what they're going to do. Like I said, Roquan's been around the team for a lot of, like you said, for the rookie and off-season stuff, but it's different than when you put the pads on and ready to play. So I think, like I said, Roquan Smith is going to have to earn the right to play. Nothing's going to be given to him. Yeah, he was a top pick. That's great, but he wasn't there for most of the training camp. So, he's got to come take the job from Nick. So we'll see how that kind of battles out. If you're Chicago Matt Nagy, you got to go with the player that's going to best help you win right now. And while Roquan Smith might be the better player down the road, if the other linebacker is better and ready to play right now, then you got to play him.
Yeah, Matt Nagy was vocal a couple days ago, quoting, he now he's not saying that it's going to have an impact on his development at all. Now, this was obviously before this deal got done. The deal was just completed earlier this afternoon, a few hours ago. But the other day, Matt Nagy did say, hey, you know what, right now, how long he's been holding out for? Yeah, I do think it's starting to hurt his performance come week one, whenever he does come with the team and sign with the team. So that was an interesting nugget that Nagy threw out there. And one last thing, really the holdout, the reason of the holdout was, long story short, Roquan Smith and his agency wanted the guaranteed money to be guaranteed. They didn't want that to be touched after this contract was signed, which I fully understand. I do think guaranteed money should be guaranteed and it shouldn't be touched. So that part I do agree with them. And with that said, we're going to move on to a different topic, Devon, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're suspending Jalen Ramsey and Dante Fowler Jr. 1 week. Fowler Jr. and Yannick Ngakoue, another defensive end on the Jaguars, got into a pretty heated argument that turned into a little bit of a shoving match, and then teammates having to hold the two back. And Jalen Ramsey sees reporters recording that and kind of gets into it with the media, which is the reason why Jalen Ramsey is being suspended. Fowler is being suspended for that altercation with Ngakoue. And the reason why I bring this up now is because the Jaguars come out today and say that they won't be going after any of Jalen Ramsey's guaranteed money. Now, going back to the Roquan situation, Roquan wanted to make sure his guaranteed money wouldn't be touched if he were to get into an altercation at practice or in a live game or so be it. Now, the Jaguars and Jalen Ramsey kind of find themselves in a situation where Roquan didn't want to see himself in. If the Jaguars really wanted to, they could have gone after some of Jalen Ramsey's guaranteed money. Instead,
right.
They see it's not that big of a deal, but they're still saying, hey, we're going to suspend you for a week, which Jalen Ramsey, one of the best defenders in the league, he probably doesn't give a crap if he's missing a week in the preseason. I mean, you're probably doing them more of a favor if more than anything. So I just kind of want to throw that out there and get your thoughts on this. I mean, you're going to suspend, one of the best defenders in the NFL, probably the best cornerback or defensive back in the NFL for a week in the preseason. I don't think you're really making much of a statement than you are just doing them a favor.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, you're pretty. Like I said, you're pretty much doing them a favor because. Why do they need, again, it's preseason. They'll happily take a week off and say, okay, yeah, I wasn't going to play that many snaps anyway, but now I really ain't got to worry about playing. So was it for the reasons why they got it, why they got those suspensions, was it right? Yeah, Jacksonville had to lay down the law because, again, if you're a player, you can't really be going at the media like that. Understand that as a player, yeah, you're going to get upset at what said media writes about you, et cetera, but you got to understand from a player's perspective, you got to understand that the media is also doing their job as well. If you disagree with what they're saying about you, then go ahead and show it on the field and prove yourself that, hey, what y'all writing about us ain't true because we're this good, we're that good, et cetera. So I think, again, it was more so like the Jacksonville Jaguars played themselves with this. It was just like, again, you gave these guys off preseason. And we barely see starters playing the preseason anyway. And this is the second week of the preseason, so barely any first teamers start. Now, it would have made a difference if they said we're suspending them for the week 3 preseason game. Then I would say, okay, now they're really doing something because we always see in week 3 of the preseason the starters play. into the third quarter. It almost reminds me of what Hugh Jackson did with Antonio Callaway, which was like, I'm playing you the whole game. You're going to play 54. He played about 54 snaps. I can see how that's punishment because you're not giving the kid a break, but in a way, it only helps Callaway because he gets more snaps and reps on the football field. So it's kind of interesting just looking at what the Jaguars did and also looking at what the Browns did in both their punishment situations. They felt like they were laying down the law, but in the end, they're also helping the player.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally correct there. And you bring up the Browns situation with Antonio Callaway. I mean, like you said, I think that's more of a situation where it's actually helping the player out. I mean, here's the Browns again,
especially a fourth rounder,
taking another L, trying to punish a player. Let alone it's really helping the player. Not only is it because it's a rookie 4th round pick, unproven commodity, but this is a guy that didn't play a snap of football last season. He coming out of the University of Florida, obviously the troubles Antonio Callaway has had off the field has been documented, and they're already starting to carry on into the NFL as well. And here's the Cleveland Browns trying to punish one of their players, and they do that by having him play 54, I believe, snaps in that first preseason game, and more than anything, Antonio Callaway probably wishes he could have gotten 60 or more. Although there were, I'm not going to sit here and say I've watched the entire Cleveland Browns first preseason game, but supposedly he was pretty tired and was calling to get out of the game, and they weren't having any of that. But anyway, I mean that's a rookie 4th round pick, and while you'd like to think that his job is guaranteed, not every 4th round pick's job is guaranteed. Although I don't see any way Callaway gets released or anything, because the talent is there. It's just whether or not he wants to buy in and stay clean off the field. So we'll see about that. Now, when it comes to Dante Fowler Jr., this is a guy that was drafted 3rd overall a few years ago. Tears his ACL right away his rookie season. And last season kind of had I'd call it a breakout year. I believe he was still technically a backup or a rotational piece on that Jacksonville Jaguars defensive line, but had 8 sacks. I believe 2 of those sacks came in the AFC Championship game against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. So it started to seem like things were starting to turn around for Dante Fowler. He's already suspended week 1 of the regular season for an arrest, I believe, in the off season. And now here he is missing a week of preseason. I don't think he's in danger of losing his job in Jacksonville.
No.
But
possibly endanger himself of not staying on the team long term.
Exactly. Or, maybe a team would be willing to trade for him. Like, all right, hey, this is a guy that's a backup in Jacksonville right now. This is a guy that we also had graded very high coming out of the draft. Let's trade maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick to try and get an elite pass rusher and get his potential out there. But this could potentially stop that from happening. So again, it probably helps Jalen Ramsey more than it does Dante Fowler. But in the end, it probably helps. It's probably not doing much damage to Dante Fowler Jr. either.
No, because again, like you said, his roster spot is, even though like that he's suspended for the first week of the regular season, it doesn't harm any of them. But again, it's more so, I think, unlike Jalen Ramsey, I think for Dante Fowler, the Jacksonville Jaguars keep on giving him like warning signs and like warning signals, like, hey, we're doing this. We're expecting that you eventually like shape up and fix yourself. And if he doesn't start to get his act together, we've seen it just in sports in general. Teams do not have problems letting go, guys that are that are 1st round selections in any sport. They don't have a problem getting rid of them, especially if they're still on their rookie deal. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, last year, I won't even compare it to the situation, but we saw last year at the trade deadline, the Miami Dolphins traded away Jay Ajayi, who was a 1st round pick. They traded him away, and it's just like, really? Like a guy that, was really productive for you, but you trade him away because, of all these, locker room issues and things like that, when that was neither here or there, neither the case, and now they're trying to find who's going to be their starting running back. So it's a game that you kind of have. It's a tricky game, I'll say. It's a very tricky game when you're dealing with guys who are highly talented players, but who haven't lived up to the potential, like Dante Fowler Jr. And he's going to continue to get passed over because they got Calais Campbell on the defensive line. They drafted another guy in Taven Bryan. They got Yannick Ngakoue, who's he was like, I think, a third round selection, and he's kind of played himself into a very big role there in Jacksonville. So if you're Dante Fowler, you would think that he would got to get his act together eventually. He's not playing for his job in Jacksonville. He's also those type of players, just players generally got to think you're playing for the other 31 teams in the NFL as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you mentioned it, Yannick Ngakoue. Like you said, I believe he was a third-round pick for Jacksonville a couple years ago, and third-round pick out of Maryland. And since he's come to the league, I mean, he's really been one of the probably more underrated pass rushers. Even looking back to his, I was going to say freshman year, but his rookie year in Jacksonville, 8 sacks, even an interception. Then last year he follows that up with 12 sacks. So, the arrow's only pointing upwards for him. And, yeah, since day one, the third-round pick, Yannick Ngakoue, comes in. And, here's Dante Fowler coming off an ACL injury, the number 3 overall pick. And right away, Yannick Ngakoue steals that starting job from Fowler. So you would almost think, and maybe there was some bad blood, maybe that's something that kind of triggered this fight between the two. But there's a reason why Fowler is the one that's getting this week's suspension and not Yannick Ngakoue. Again, you guys are listening to the Final Possession Football Podcast, the FPFP. I'm Chris Shanafelt. He's Javon Alford. And Javon, let's go to your back of the woods by you, and that is Philadelphia. And the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions. I'm sure that does not get old to hear for the fans in Philadelphia. Alshon Jeffrey, I'm not even going to act like I know the situation too much, although from his time in Chicago, this is a guy that had a lot of, nagging injuries that seemed to last and wouldn't really go away. And here he is. There's talk that he may start the regular season on the PUP list, physically unable to perform. What do you know about this whole situation surrounding Alshon Jeffrey?
I mean, right now he's on the PUP. Right, he's technically still on the PUP right now. And in the preseason, I mean, when I've gone to training, when I went to training camp the one time I did go, I did see him on the sidelines. He really wasn't doing much. I think he was throwing a football around, playing catch, but really wasn't doing a lot of activity. A couple of days ago, Doug Peterson in his press conference said that Jeffrey's in the strength phase of his rehab, so he's doing a lot of cardio, things like that, altered D's or whatever. But they're very happy, it seems like, with the progression that he's making, and that's good. I mean, would it be a bummer if he does start on PUP? Definitely, because if he does, then he's done for the first 6 weeks of the season. And that means he won't come back until week 7. But people got to understand this guy, pretty much he just had surgery in February. So you think February, August, so right around 6 months, he's trying to come back.
What did he have surgery on, Javon? I remember his rookie year in Chicago. He broke his hand and missed some time with that. Had to have he did not have to have surgery his rookie year, but then after that he would have these nagging injuries with his leg, his ankles. What did he recently have surgery on? If you could refresh our memory.
He in February after Super Bowl, he had his surgery on a torn rotator cuff in his shoulder, which he had injured last preseason.
That's right.
Last year during this time. So pretty much, if you guys think about it, Alshon Jeffrey played every game with a torn rotator cuff into the playoffs, in the playoffs, Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, caught touchdowns, fell on that shoulder, did it all on a banged up shoulder. So he obviously took the opportunity to finally get it healed up and rehabbed, and this is a situation that the Eagles are in. Obviously, he got his reward for playing well towards the end of last season with a 4-year, $52 million contract extension. So that was a good look by the Eagles to reward a guy who definitely has paid off huge dividends for Carson Wentz and being that number one option for the Eagles. But if I'm the Eagles, I don't rush him back. You take your time because shoulders are it's a very delicate situation, especially with the muscles that are right there. Don't rush them back. The Eagles don't have to. They got a lot of weapons. You got to think at wide receiver, a lot of weapons with the likes of Mike Wallace, Nelson Aguilar, who had a breakout year last year, in the slot. Also look out for Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins in the first preseason game got a lot of run in the first quarter against the Steelers. So Mac Hollins, who's another big body wide receiver that can stretch the field and has speed, he could be an option to step in for Alshon Jeffrey. You also have to look at the tight ends that the Eagles got. Eagles got 3 tight ends: Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, and Richard Rodgers. All 3 guys that can catch the ball effectively. Then you got to look at the running back. They got a multitude of weapons at the running back position that they could lean on. So I definitely think for the Eagles, they're okay with Jeffrey and just rehab. And I think it's a delicate situation that they should not rush.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mike Wallace. I think he's kind of been a guy that's kind of gone under the radar. I don't think a lot of people are really paying too much attention to that signing, but that could be in addition to this offense that really pays off and could be a low-risk, high-reward type of addition, especially if Alshon does have to miss some time. Now, Alshon Jeffrey, obviously not the only one dealing with injuries. Update us on the quarterbacks if you can, Javon. I mean, what's it looking like for Carson Wentz? I mean, it's probably still too early to tell. I'm sure he's going to miss the whole preseason, but what's it looking like come week 1 of the regular season? I know Nick Foles is dealing with an injury as well, and why in the hell is Christian Hackenberg a Philadelphia Eagle?
I mean, we can start with Christian Hackenberg. I mean,
you knew it was coming.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. He's obviously another camp arm for him. They obviously have Joe Callahan there as the fourth quarterback on the roster.
Is there any way this can work out? I mean, the hometown kid or the former Penn State quarterback with tons of potential coming out. The Jets grab him in wasn't he a second-round pick? Obviously, did not work out at all. I don't even believe he's taken an NFL snap in the regular season, and I believe he's working with like the third team all along with the New York Jets. Is there any way in hell this works out for the Philadelphia Eagles some way, somehow?
I mean, for the Eagles, it gives them another chance to create another reclamation project. I mean, the way they developed Nate Sudfeld from last preseason, from September to now, where they truly believe that Nate Sudfeld could be a starter in the NFL one day. I can kind of see it with Sudfeld. Now, how will they be able to fix Christian Hackenberg? That's going to be interesting to see, because nobody's going to discredit the arm strength that Christian Hackenberg has. He has tremendous arm strength, but the accuracy, can he put the throws on the money? And I think that's going to be interesting to see. I mean, there's no way he makes the Eagles roster. Eagles are not carrying 4 quarterbacks on the roster. I don't even think they're going to put one on a practice squad. So for Hackenberg, this is a shot for him to just it's a shot for him to change the narrative about himself. And if he can do that, then maybe he can land an opportunity somewhere else. Maybe he can land an opportunity on another team's roster as a third guy and work his way as that second guy, or ever practice squad on somebody else's roster, because he's going to have to do that. He's going to have to develop and change the way people view him as a quarterback, because a lot of people view him as a bust. They view him as the guy from Penn State who had a tremendous freshman year under Bill O'Brien, but then fell off his last 2 years in college football. And it was a mind-boggling last 2 years of his college career that really had people thinking, what happened to this kid? He's only 23. There's still room for him to figure things out, and hopefully he takes these last 4 weeks with the Eagles, these last 3 or 4 weeks with the Eagles, and really hones in on on his development, and maybe they'll get something out of him. If they do, it's a miracle, and they'll be looked at as the QB whisperers if the Eagles can do so. So that's all about Hackenberg. Wentz, everybody, Wentz is just continuing to do what he does in practice, just throwing the ball around, making the throws, and I get the sense that he probably will play to open the season. I'm kind of hesitant about that because knee injuries are just so iffy because you don't want to rush somebody back so quickly and then they get hurt again and then it just further pushes them back because we're talking about a guy in Carson Wentz who is this team's franchise quarterback. Like he's the franchise
MVP
guy
last year,
right.
If you ask me.
Exactly.
I mean, injury or not, he should have gotten that award. And if he would have finished the regular season, he would have had that award for sure.
Oh, without question, because you think about it, he left that game against the Rams, and they still had 3 games left, and he had 33 touchdowns at that point.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell me that he throws 3 more touchdowns in all those games now and give him 42 touchdowns? Please, that would have gave him the MVP quickly over Tom Brady. Over Tom Brady, who shouldn't have got the MVP award with Todd Gurley. But I digress. But Wentz, I think I get the sense that he will play in week 1. I just think they're trying to be very hesitant and precautious with him, and I don't blame him. In Foles, I think he was dealing with some spasms and things like that, but he is back to practice. I think that you will probably see him in week 2, which is great. If not, more Nate Sudfeld, which is great for Nate because he needs as many reps as he can, just to just stay ready because you just never know in the NFL when your number is going to be called. So week 2, hopefully you'll see some Foles. If not, more Nate Sudfeld. But then in week 3 against the Cleveland Browns, definitely you would think that the Eagles will want to get Nick Foles out there just to get him some live reps in a game if he has to play week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons.
Hey, let's carry on with the quarterback conversation. Again, you guys are listening to the Final Possession Football Podcast. I'm Chris Shanafelt. He's Javon Alford. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Shanafelt. He's at Javon10. Sticking with the quarterbacks, Javon, Denver has a little bit of a switch up. No, Case Keenum is still the starter, but the backup, the guy that's taken second-team reps, is Chad Kelly and not Paxton Lynch. So you got the former Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the NFL draft a couple years ago, kind of overcoming and taking the former first-round draft pick, quarterback Paxton Lynch's spot with the second team. Doesn't come as a surprise. I mean, really ever since Paxton Lynch arrived there in Denver, I mean, it's just been really bad. And no matter the coaching staff he's with, whether it was Gary Kubiak or now Vance Joseph, I mean, they just do not seem confident in Paxton Lynch at all. And obviously, this move confirms that. Chad Kelly now taking second-team reps ahead of Paxton Lynch. Kelly had a pretty good preseason game a couple days ago against the Minnesota Vikings, and that kind of solidified this roster or this depth chart change. I would not be surprised, and I don't think it's going to happen. He's still on his rookie deal, but it wouldn't really come off as a surprise if Denver just wants to wash their hands and get rid of Paxton Lynch and just kind of already take their L, knowing that this will not work. What about you? Would that come as a surprise to you at all? I mean, Paxton Lynch, a former first-round pick, and we were just talking about the Philadelphia Eagles a little bit ago. He was in that same draft class as Carson Wentz, as Jared Goff, and some put Paxton Lynch ahead of those guys.
No doubt.
Would that be a surprise to you if Paxton Lynch is among those roster cuts later on in the month?
Not really, because you think about it in his time in Denver, and let me before I begin. When will Denver learn their lesson about drafting quarterbacks that are 6'7"? They just don't work. It just doesn't happen, and it's okay. Just hold the L, take it, hold it high, do whatever you need to do. Put it on the top of the Bronco at Mile High Stadium or whatever.
Can you imagine if John Elway never signed Peyton Manning and they didn't go to the 2 Super Bowls and win one, and how he is not a great talent evaluator, at least when it comes to the
No,
quarterback position.
no, not at all. He's not a great talent. He's not a great talent evaluator when it comes to high quarterback prospects. Because you think about it, when you just look at over the last couple of years, when Paxton Lynch in Denver, Trevor Siemian, a 7th-round guy who was coming off of a knee injury, had beat him out for the backup job, and then eventually overtook him to be the starter. And then if we just look last year in the preseason, Kyle Slaughter was pushing to make that roster. He was pushing. He was pushing that. He was making noise in the preseason where it was like, it was getting, NFL Twitter and draft Twitter really up there like, yeah, this guy from a small school might push Paxton Lynch, and we're in the same situation here again. Not so much dealing with a small school, but dealing with a guy in Chad Kelly who, he has a live arm. Again, there's no question. The same thing with Christian Hackenberg. There's no question with these about the guys with the live arm. It's just, can they make the throws that count? And Chad Kelly had a nice throw in the Vikings' first preseason game against the Minnesota Vikings. So now what you want to see is, can Kelly carry that over into this week? If he can, then it makes it a very interesting conversation. And I think people have to realize that when it comes to preseason, is that preseason is not about the wins and losses. It's about player progression. Will a player continue to improve as the preseason go along, or will they continue to take a step back, or will they just straight flatline through the rest of the preseason? So I think if you're the Broncos and Chad Kelly continues to outperform Paxton Lynch, you might have to cut your ties, because again, what value do you have if you keep him on the roster? Nobody's going to trade for him at this point. He holds no value when it comes to a trade. So you might be better off just letting him go at the end of the preseason if you feel like Chad Kelly deserves to be the backup to Case Keenum. Because Case Keenum's not on a long-term deal. He's only on a 2-year deal, which means they could possibly view Chad Kelly as the future. Now, that's very hindsight, long-term viewing, but just a lot of hypotheticals that could happen with that Denver Broncos quarterback situation.
No doubt. But one thing is clear, and that is there is no faith in the state of Colorado and Paxton Lynch. I mean, the fan base, no. Did you see the fan base started a GoFundMe page to get Paxton Lynch out? They want to pay the fee that it would take to get this quarterback out of Denver, which, if you're Paxton Lynch, man, you know that's gotta hurt. You gotta be feeling that. I mean, at one point you're on top of the world. You got John Elway drafting you in the first round to be the quarterback of an NFL franchise in the Denver Broncos, and since then, nothing has gone Paxton Lynch's way. There's rumors that he's too much into the video games and maybe not so much into the playbook, and it is just not good for Paxton Lynch. You got to wonder how much longer his time in Denver will carry on for. What about rookie quarterback? Go ahead. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, put the PS4 down, Paxton. Just put the PS4 down. Pick up the playbook, man. Stop worrying about the Madden X's and O's and the 4 verts, and worry about the 4 verts that are in the playbook.
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's something that needs to happen, man. Even if it does happen, it may be a little too late for Paxton Lynch, at least in Denver. But what about rookie quarterbacks, Javon? So far, again, we're only 1 week in. Although we've seen 2 weeks worth of Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. Which rookie quarterback from the first week caught your eye?
Wow, that's a tough question. Lamar did look better. I think Lamar played much better from week 1 against the Bears to week 2. Again, we saw that progression. He trusted his feet some more. He made some nice throws, so you got to give him that. Sam Darnold really impressed me. When I was watching the highlights of his throws, the amount of arm strength and heat that he puts on those passes, he really puts them there. So I think the Jets have a very nice quarterback competition going on with him and Teddy Bridgewater. And I think Baker Mayfield, Baker played really well too against the Giants, and even though it was against, second and third teamers, again, people might say, well, he plays second and third teamers, he's supposed to do that. But if he struggles, then we're saying that he's a bust. So for him to play well in that environment, he did. He did well. He made some nice throws, made a excellent throw to David Njoku, and then that slant route to Antonio Callaway. That was picture perfect football. He got the ball in front of Callaway, putting the ball where Callaway needed to be on that slant. Once Callaway broke off into the field, the ball was right there. So then the ball in front, all Callaway has to do is catch it and run for the distance. So I think those three guys, in my opinion, really showed some things in this first week or 2 weeks for Lamar Jackson of preseason.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I can just echo what you said there about the rookie quarterbacks. I even thought, the little bit of Josh Rosen that we saw, I mean, you could kind of tell that he's ready to make that next step, and he was playing with number 2s and 3s as well. You wonder how he would look if he were throwing the ball to a guy like a Larry Fitzgerald or
right.
the number 1 starting offensive line out there with him, but. This, and I'm not saying this is going to be some legendary rookie class. Obviously, time will tell. It has the potential to be that, no doubt about it. But a good start so far, I think, for really every one of these guys. And Baker Mayfield obviously lit the world on fire. That's Tyrod Taylor. It's Tyrod, not Tyrod.
Taylor. Yes,
it's Tyrod Taylor's job, man, in there in Cleveland, and the coaching staff there, and John Dorsey, the general manager, they've made that clear, and you're not going to trade a third-round pick for a guy, especially with the caliber that Tyrod Taylor has, and not start him. I think they're doing the absolutely right thing there. Now, eventually, I'm sure Baker Mayfield will be the starter at some point this season. It would not surprise me at all. Maybe if they are, 4-8 at one point, and then they say, hey, we're just going to let Baker take the keys from this point. But Baker Mayfield looked pretty good. But I think at least week 1 preseason, I mean, you got to give a round of applause to Sam Darnold, man. I mean, he looked legit, and this is the guy that the New York Jets, they've been looking for a quarterback for a very long time, as have the Cleveland Browns, obviously. Both of these franchises just have been striking out for years now. And if you're a New York Jets fan, I think you got to feel pretty good that not only is the number 3 overall pick, Sam Darnold, looking pretty good, but you got Teddy Bridgewater, you got Josh McCown. Again, I mean, I'm not saying Josh McCown's a great starting quarterback, but he's certainly, if he needs to go out there and is thrown into action, he could certainly be capable of at least being better than just a regular game manager or an average game manager at times. But, even ahead of him, at least me personally, I would put Darnold and Bridgewater ahead of McCown. And it's looking like Sam Darnold may just win that quarterback competition come week 1 of the regular season. I've seen NFL.com have an article out there. They're reporting that he's already receiving the majority of the New York Jets first team reps. So long story short, pretty successful week 1 for the rookie quarterbacks in the NFL week 1 preseason. Not to let Josh Allen go unnoticed. I gotta say, so far, again, 1 preseason game in, he's even looking better than I initially expected, and you wonder if he could win that starting job there. Obviously with A.J. McCarron and Nate Peterman also battling for that starting job, but his arm is, he has a rocket of an arm. I think he launched like a 60-yard pass, and I mean that velocity.
That went out of bounds, though, right?
Right.
That's when that went out of bounds.
But it was. it was impressive, to say the least. Now, if you can just work on that accuracy and maybe at least throw it inbounds, that'll be a good start for Josh Allen. But I mean,
listen, he's got the arm of Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell had a great arm, but I mean, he wasn't impressive. I hope he can beat out Nathan Peterman for his sake, because Nathan Peterman can't even get the ball down the field. the way Josh Allen can. So I hope he does well. I really do. I hope.
If Nate Peterman is throwing to a person with the opposite jersey that he's wearing, he can move.
That is true. That is true. Yes, that is true. Josh Allen just don't do that. But I think I want to see what Josh Allen does I want to see what he does this week, because I feel like this past week in the preseason, I swear it was like more so a lot of people on Twitter was talking more about the Josh Allen lowlights than they were the highlights, and that's never good.
Right. Yeah, you're right about that, and and not to give Josh Allen any excuses or anything. Again, even coming out of Wyoming, I wasn't a big fan of his, but I think this Buffalo team, man, I mean, especially when you're just playing with the 2s and 3s, even the starters,
yeah.
I mean, that's probably, if I had to go with, the worst team in the league, I think I'm probably going with Buffalo, and obviously it all starts with the quarterback. If you're giving me Josh Allen, Nate Peterman, and A.J. McCarron and telling me to pick one of those guys to start week 1 of the NFL for a franchise, I mean, I'm almost about ready to throw up just thinking about it. I mean, that's an awful situation there. And then you look at the rest of their roster, and it's just not very impressive. The defense has some potential. The defense is pretty good, and I expect that to be a strong defensive team. But for a team that was just in the playoffs a year ago, that was a very fun and upbeat team that seemed like they could be really turning the corner there in Buffalo, and then they get rid of Tyrod Taylor. I mean, basically that was kind of the start of a downfall, it felt like, there in Buffalo. One last thing, Javon, we're going to go from Buffalo to Cleveland. Again, we talked a little bit about Tyrod Taylor and the impressive debut he had week 1 of the preseason with the Cleveland Browns, and obviously they're the headline team. They're doing HBO Hard Knocks. Jarvis Landry obviously made his presence known in that first episode of Hard Knocks, and this is really a team that went 0-16 last year, and even looking at the talent that they had on the team last year, they were better than what the outcome or what the final record showed as 0-16. I've said it to quite a few people. You match that 0-16 Browns team up against the 0-16 2008 Detroit Lions. That Browns team is wiping that Lions team all across the field.
Without question.
I mean, exactly how much of a turnaround should we expect from the Cleveland Browns this year, man? I mean, I don't think it'd be too crazy to say they could possibly win 7 or 8 games this season. Again, they make a big splash trade and bringing in Jarvis Landry. They pay him the money he's been looking for. They get rid of Corey Coleman. They sent him to Buffalo. They draft Antonio Callaway, who again has like first round talent, but obviously fell to the 4th round because of his off the field troubles. This is a defense obviously coached by Greg Williams, defensive coordinator that led by Myles Garrett, the former number 1 overall pick. I really like linebacker Christian Kirksey. This is a team that has a lot of potential and a lot of, dare I say, star power names in a Myles Garrett, Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon if he could come back and play, Baker Mayfield if he gets on the field at all and performs this season. The guys they have in the backfield, drafting Nick Chubb in the 2nd round. I mean, this is a team that really does have a lot of, maybe not so much established star power, although there is some there. But this is a team that really does have a lot of potential, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think this could be one of the more fun teams to watch in all the NFL.
Oh, for sure. Like you said, they definitely do got talent at all levels, at all levels on offense and all levels on defense. It's just, can that talent all mesh together? I think that's going to be the key for them. Can that talent mesh together? Can they start creating a winning culture? Because they say in sports, winning is contagious. So if they can start winning some games and learn how to win games, they should be fine. I mean, the AFC North, let's be honest, the AFC North is not that scary as it used to be. Cincinnati is Cincinnati. You don't know what you're going to get for them, let's be honest. You don't know what you're going to get for them. Baltimore could be something, but they got some holes too. Pittsburgh, we know Pittsburgh is going to be great on offense, even when Le'Veon Bell does show up, they're going to be great on offense. But the defense can't stop a nosebleed. They give them tons of points. And let me see, I pretty much named them all. So then you got Cleveland, who's a team, like you said, that's loaded with talent on both sides of the ball. Quarterback, they finally have a quarterback that they can feel confident in running the offense. They got a running game, like you said, with Nick Chubb and Duke Johnson, who's became more of a versatile receiving threat for them. And then obviously you got Carlos Hyde back there, more of a power back. And then, like I said, wide receiver, Jarvis Landry, who is a number one wide receiver. Miami is foolish for getting rid of him for whatever reason. Again, this might be more egg on their face. Them trading away J.J. and now moving Jarvis Landry. This might be more egg on their face because who knows if Devontae Parker's won't even make the Dolphins this year, the way he's playing. So they could really be in a hole in wide receiver. So you got Jarvis Landry. Yeah. Woohoo. Danny Amendola. How many times are we going to run that train around? But you got him, and then obviously, like you said, Antonio Callaway. If he can turn to something, that would be a great draft selection by John Dorsey. And then, like you said, you got Josh Gordon. I mean, we saw what he did last year and when he finally came back. The man can still play some football. He is a huge weapon and a huge target. And he had Deshaun Kaiser getting the ball to him, but this year he's got a Tyrod Taylor and a Baker Mayfield getting him the football this year. Two different quarterbacks than he had to deal with last year at this time. And if he can come back, ready to go, ready to play football, then they should be able to put up some points. And like I said, defense, they got talent at all three levels. Emmanuel Ogbah, Myles Garrett, like I said, Christian Kirksey, defense with Jabril Peppers and a whole bunch of other playmakers. This team can really make some noise. Now, will they make the playoffs? No. That would be preposterous to say that they'll make the playoffs. But like you said, can they win 6-7 games? That's definitely plausible. And if they can get 6 or 7 wins, I think for a lot of Browns fans, they would take that in a heartbeat. And that means they've shown some improvement. They've learned how to win some games, and they also lost some games probably that they probably should have won.
Yeah, and honestly, I was a really big fan of Hugh Jackson, man, and I really thought he was going to turn Cleveland around. And while I'm still a fan of his, I'm not as much of a fan. He's not as good as a coach as I thought he was. I'm really, again, I'm still a fan of his. I'm really surprised anybody can keep their job, find a way to retain their job after going 0-16.
Marvin Lewis keeps his job every year.
That's true. That is true. I will be interested in seeing, though, this is not John Dorsey's guy. It seems like they do have a great relationship. I will be curious to see, though, if the Browns finish with 5 wins or less, if Hugh Jackson's able to keep that job. I'm not so sure. I think he needs to get at least maybe even 7 wins. I think they need to get out of the double-digit loss column is what John Dorsey's going to be looking for. Again, one of the more fun teams to watch in the NFL this season, I got to think, the Cleveland Browns. And, you mentioned Emmanuel Ogbah. This is a guy that, they passed over Bradley Chubb to grab Denzel Ward. They did that because they feel that Emmanuel Ogbah can be the perfect complement to play opposite side of Myles Garrett. They really think that Ogbah has star potential, and that's the reason why they decided to go Ward at number 4 overall and not Bradley Chubb. So that's key right there. That could be a really big piece to this Cleveland Browns team this season. Nonetheless, as I mentioned, win or lose, they're certainly going to be much more competitive this season. And even last year, going 0-16, they're still in quite a few of those games. Again, not although they did go 0-16, they would wipe the floor with the 2008 Detroit Lions. Again, it should be a lot of fun to watch the Cleveland Browns this season. I'm not exactly sure when the last time that was said. I don't know if I've ever said that, honestly. But this year should be a good year to be a fun year to be a Cleveland Browns fan. With that said, Javon, that's about all I have for tonight. A solid hour of NFL football talk. It's great to be back on the Final Possession Football Podcast. Again, follow us on Twitter. I'm at Chris Shanafelt. He's at Javon10. Any final words, Javon?
Hey, not much final words. Just appreciate everybody for checking out this podcast, the latest and new edition of the FPSP. Hopefully we'll continue to keep this going into the regular season and into the postseason, into the draft. And, hey, never know. You might even talk about some AAS. You know, we never know.
Yeah.
We might get to that route because, you know, that starts right after the Super Bowl ends a week later. So we might be talking about that too. So you never know.
No doubt about it. This is the Final Possession Football Podcast. We won't just be talking NFL. We'll even dip into college football when the season arrives.
Yep.
Anyways, with that said, for Javon Alford, I'm Chris Shanafelt. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show.